And action. Emma had a question about diet pills, and it's fitting to talk about how the pills affect you and how they can get you to the next level, but we should probably discuss what to do with nutrition and attempted weight loss. So if you go to a life coach, they'll probably have this thing called metabolic rate calculated. The scientific method says if you put all the numbers into the formula of metabolic rate, as long as you take in lower calories than you burn up, then theoretically you keep on burning, you don't have enough calories to overtake the basic amount that you burn up every day. You should be able to lose. In fact, if you lower your calories going in lower than your average need, which is daily metabolic rate, you should be able to burn up not only whatever you take in, but extra accumulated fat or extra accumulated energy in these fat depots. Remember, the fat depot is like a big battery, and your body will put all the energy stored in the battery for future reference. If you happen to have the thrifty gene, some cultures have that, like Pima Indians or the Inuit Eskimos. Those cultures are built for maintaining and getting through starvation seasons and years. But it also gives those folks the unfortunate advantage or disadvantage of storing a lot also. So it makes it harder for them to lose weight. So even if you calculate the basal metabolic rate and you go lower than your daily requirements, you might not lose weight. And because, as I mentioned to Emma, calculations are great if all other variables are controlled. But not all variables are controlled, like the quality of the food you eat, the quality of your sleep. If you lack a mindful practice of some sort to negate stress, if you are exercising or not exercising, the intensity of your exercise, the type of exercise. So all these have the temperature, the timing of your food. So all these have a lot to do with variables that sometimes don't make your basal metabolic rate formula work properly. So what usually happens with a lot of folks is when they get on a nutrition plan, whether it's the paleo, the Whole30, the keto diet, Atkins, Pritikin, Mediterranean, South Beach, whatever it is that you adopt, or if you just have one personally made for you and designed for you, sometimes you'll effectively have a massive weight loss in the beginning. Because most of us, if you look at the standard American diet, are taking in way too many carbohydrates, especially high glycemic index carbohydrates. Those are the crappy ones. And when you take in an exorbitant amount of carbohydrates, you're going to have leftover, and the body doesn't just poop out the leftover, it stores it. And so that's why it's sometimes when you cut back on the carbohydrates, suddenly between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, carbohydrates have the highest affinity for fluid, water. So usually for every carbohydrate gram that you store, you have a little bit of water gets tucked away. So when you cut back on carbohydrates, you definitely burn up what you have, but you also lose initially a lot of water weight. Wrestlers do this all the time. They'll lose massively, then they'll hit a plateau. And the plateau might be where your body kind of has to go through another jump start. So the body can actually figure, okay, you're in starvation, so it's going to get really good with extracting as much calories as possible, and during starvation times, stuff them into the battery instead of use them and burn them up and use them for digestion, use them for building brain muscle, use them for hormone. It'll think starvation, and it's going to put every single morsel you take, even if it's a lower basal metabolic rate, right into the fat depot. Remember, starvation is almost like cortisol. Cortisol in the morning is good. Cortisol all day long is bad. So when you have cortisol all day long, it means high unanswered stress, then again the body will try to put fat into depot areas instead of burning up the fat properly, or extra calories. So it doesn't have to be fat. Even if you have a high protein diet, if you don't use up that protein, it gets converted into a storage form, which is usually fat. So that's what I would usually tell folks before they're going on to the diet pills. I would usually want to maximize on everything I mentioned: exercise, mindful practice, sleep, activities at work, nutrition. So if you do all that, great. If you hit a plateau, what sometimes happens is after you burn off all that carbohydrate and water weight, you sometimes, if you are doing all those things I mentioned, you'll sometimes start to develop mass, muscle mass. You won't notice any further weight loss because the muscle starts to grow. As it responds to your exercise, if you're doing it properly, your muscle grows, and because muscle is heavier than fat, your weight actually stays the same as you continue to grow muscle. You won't be bodybuilder size, but you'll have muscle thickness, and that is because of increased mitochondria, and that's going to add weight to you. So as you continue to lose fat weight and carbohydrate and water weight, muscle makes it seem like you're actually plateauing until a certain time when muscle starts to become very adapted and it burns off even more and faster. So you'll see another decline quick. But everybody's a little different as far as when that happens. And usually when people hit a plateau and they don't notice the muscle size or they don't notice the waistline decreasing because the fat is getting burned up, but the scale is the same, then they get frustrated and they go drop off the diet practice. So what I sometimes do would be to increase metabolic rate. Sometimes if you've done everything and you're still plateaued, the diet pills, prescription ones, can be used to increase metabolic rate. That's the old phentermine, which is kind of dangerous because it's essentially an amphetamine. So it can cause problems with acne, high blood pressure, high heart rate, insomnia, anxiety. Or the other ones have a combination of speed, which is the amphetamine, and maybe an appetite suppressant. Those appetite suppressants are found in, say, SSRIs or derivatives of SSRIs, which are antidepressants. And they've found that if they can kind of extract one thing, chemical particle out of the antidepressant, it'll make you less hungry. There's also other ones with seizure medicine, believe it or not, in combination with naltrexone or other antidepressants or mood stabilizers. They've all been helpful for decreasing appetite. So the bottom line with prescription diet pills is either they speed up metabolism, a little dangerous, but useful to move you past the stick point for a short amount of time, or appetite suppressants in case you cannot maintain that strict dietary decreased caloric intake and you need a little help. Might be able to get those two things useful in a short amount of time is what I would suggest before you hopefully get past your stick point and continue to lose weight again. Then you get off of those things. There are herbal ones that aren't as strong with their research: forskolin, relora, Garcinia cambogia, Gymnema sylvestri. They kind of help, but not as strong as the prescriptions. Definitely not as many side effects. So it's always important to do all your basic things first as far as healthy lifestyle. And sometimes if there is a stick point that you can't break, I have to do things like testing out your adrenals, testing out your thyroid, testing out to see if you're hormonally deficient in testosterone or estrogen, and making sure everything's balanced. Also have to look into your sleep, make sure you're not snoring properly or improperly. And when all that stuff is hit and done, and you're still hitting the wall, then it might be necessary to call in the reinforcements. Worst case scenario is if you've done everything and you don't want to use medicines or don't respond to medicines, or you have side effects to medicines and you can't get them, sometimes the gastric sleeve or surgery will be important. But all that does, all of the surgeries, whether it's a Roux-en-Y, gastric sleeve, inflatable, they decrease the volume of your stomach. And if you decrease the volume of your stomach, you can't force down. Even if you're hungry, you can't force down anything more because it's painful. There's no room. So it forces you to take in small volume. But in the past, I had about the first 10 patients at CDH with regards to gastric bypass. In the past, my patients did lose a lot of weight initially, but that also, you can figure out a way how to get around it by usually eating more frequently. So you have to be careful again. For the worst case scenarios, if you're bound to have a hip replacement or a knee replacement, or you're getting to insulin, or you're at risk for a heart attack, then it's worth it to even consider surgery. But I'd always do things naturally first, maximize, get a health coach, and get all the proper steps first before going straight to the big guns. Hopefully this helps. Emma, good question. Keep on doing what you're doing. Come back and see me or